Would you appreciate real and honest conversation about how we actually live and experience mitzvot day to day? I'm excited to introduce Women Talking Mitzvot, a new podcast co-produced by deracheha.org and Beit Midrash Migdal Oz. In each episode, Rabbanit Shana Goldberg and Rabbanit Dr. Yosefa Fogel-Rubel explore both the texts and the lived experiences of women keeping halacha. They go beyond the sources to ask what it means to take mitzvot seriously without shying away from real-life challenges. And they make it relevant for men as well. Whether you're looking for spiritual or intellectual insight, or just a voice that resonates, Women Talking Mitzvot offers meaningful, grounded conversation, rooted in Torah and lived with authenticity. Listen on your favorite podcast app, or visit deracheha.org. That's DERACHEHA.org. And look out for special episodes going up for Elul and the Yamim Noraim that you do not want to miss. Women Talking Mitzvot. You can find the link in the description of this podcast.
I can't explain you how much power it gave to the hundreds of people around who took that moment of half an hour's learning and said, thanks God, we used to say about the Torah, Etz chaim lemachzikim ba. And when your tree is broken, you are going deep, deep to the roots of the tree and say, no, we are still connected. Etz chaim lemachzikim ba. So the whole learning of that time was for us like keeping Etz chaim, the tree of life. So this is very clear moment for me that what 9 to 9 is all about. Etz chaim lemachzikim ba.
I'm Scott Kahn, and this is the Orthodox Conundrum. This is the Orthodox Conundrum on JewishCoffeehouse.com. I'm Scott Kahn. 929 is a shared Tanach learning project in which Jews around the world read one chapter a day, 5 days a week, on a unified calendar. As the 929 cycle opens once again, it's a good moment not only to celebrate consistency, but to ask what daily Tanakh study actually does to us as learners, families, and communities. My guest today is Rabbi Benny Lau, the founder of 929. We talk about why he started it in the first place, what gap in Jewish life he hoped to fill, what the core goal is, and why a steady chapter-a-day rhythm might build a shared language of Torah across very different communities of Jews. At the same time, we lean into the harder questions. What happens when people treat Tanakh as a direct guidebook for life, in particular regarding power and war, without the mediating lens of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral tradition, and the halachic process? Are there ethical and moral risks of reading in isolation, such as cherry-picking verses, flattening context, creating echo chambers, or wrapping our own instincts in biblical language? And conversely, what are the genuine gains of broad, accessible Bible learning for a generation hungry for meaning and rootedness? We talk about Pshat and Mesorah, inspiration and guardrails, pluralism and boundaries. I asked Rabbi Benny about who gets a voice and how to keep serious learning both accessible and responsible. We also discuss practical issues, such as what to do when you fall behind, and how to approach troubling passages with intellectual honesty and religious humility. Whether you're enthusiastic about 929 or skeptical of it, this conversation is an invitation to take Tanakh and how we interpret it seriously, so that our learning engenders empathy, deepens Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven, and strengthens commitment to a life lived through the halachic process. And we'll get to that conversation in just a moment. First, I'm excited to announce that we at Jewish Coffee House are continuing to expand the conversation by bringing you, our listeners, into the mix, introducing JCH Q&A, an exciting new podcast where listener-submitted questions are answered in a thoughtful, honest, and engaging way. We plan to dive deep into your pressing hashkafic, political, and philosophical questions. We're looking to address the ideas that matter, the issues that challenge us, and the topics that spark real curiosity. Nothing is off limits, and all submissions will remain anonymous. To submit a question for our first episode, you must be a member of the JCH Podcast WhatsApp community. To join, look for the link in the description of this podcast. We look forward to receiving your questions. Remember to subscribe to the Orthodox Conundrum podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate it and write a review. Continue the conversation on Facebook by joining the Orthodox Conundrum discussion group. Subscribe to my Substack, Orthodox Conundrum Commentary. Check out the link in the description of this podcast to get your free subscription today. Finally, in 2025, the best way to promote your organization, your business, or yourself is to create a high-quality podcast, and JCH Podcast Productions can help you make that happen. Whether you want to learn how to start your own podcast or want to improve the podcast you already produce, we will make it happen. Write to us at aliza@jewishcoffeehouse.com. That's ALIZA @jewishcoffeehouse.com. And let's get started with your high-quality, memorable, and effective podcast. Rabbi Benny Lau is an Israeli rabbi, community leader, activist, author, and public speaker based in Jerusalem. He's the founder and head of 929, Tanach Biachad, and served as rabbi of Kilat Ramban for 18 years. He heads the Human Rights and Judaism in Action Project at the Israel Democracy Institute and previously directed multiple programs at Beit Morasha, where he also founded a women's Beit Midrash and later co-founded the Beit Midrash for Social Justice with B'Ma'aglei Tzedek. An influential teacher and communicator, Rav Benny writes widely, appears frequently in Israeli media, and lectures on halacha, Tanach, and social issues. His work includes efforts to integrate members of the LGBTQ community within Orthodox life, including a 2020 document on couplehood and relationships. Rav Benny Lau, thank you very much for joining me today on the Orthodox Conundrum podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We're speaking now 2 days before the current 929 cycle ends and 3 days before the next cycle begins. So as an introduction, I'd like to know, Rav Benny, what does this moment mean to you personally?
It's a very, very long journey. Started in December. It was Hanukkah days. And that was the first step of that journey of 929, the first chapter of Bereshit. And we did it with the President House, the President Rivlin, 11 years ago. And he said in that moment that it's a journey that we have the first step, but it will never end. And I believe that he knew what he said, because we are now finished the third cycle. Every cycle is 3.5 years, 5 chapters a week, every day in 5 days a week. And I believe that it will never end. People starting in very different places, religious and non-religious, youth and all that, all ages. And it's like it's like a challenge that person, especially Jewish people, said, can it be that I will pass my life without reading even one time the whole Bible from cover to cover? So this is the reason that so many people jump in every new cycle. So we are now just a few days before the fourth one, and I know already so many people will jump.
It's a beautiful initiative. I'd like to ask, initially, 11 years ago, Rabbi Benny, when you started it, what core problem in Jewish life were you trying to solve?
The truth is that the very clear moment that moved me from my old career to that one, it was about 12 years ago, even more than 12, that I invited by a high school in Tel Aviv State. Tel Aviv State mean the whole area of regular Zionist kids without religious family, all of them Jewish, all of them with background of Jewish life, but non-religious area in their own, no synagogue, no blessing at home, no Shabbat, no kashrut, regular Israelis. And I came to the class. I didn't have yet my 929 Tanach. So I used what all Israelis use in that days, the Tanach that you get in the army. You know that the soldiers, when they swear to be served in Tzva Hagana L'Israel and the IDF, all of them get Tanach. So I brought that book I invited to year 11, about 200 kids. Think about 17 years old, 200 kids, free hour with strange rabbi. It was for them, mamash, what we called in Hebrew, shiur chofshi, a free lesson. And I stood on the podium, I showed them the Tanach, and I said to them, I found that book, this book, I found it in the entrance of the class. If someone lost it, please come after the lecture to take it. And the reflect of that sentence was full of laugh. All 200 kids start laughing. And it wasn't anything against me. It was something, there are many kinds of laugh. And a sweet girl sit in the first row said to me 4 words. She didn't know then that she created 9 to 9. That girl said to me, the words in Hebrew, of course, Rabbi, Rabbi, זה לא שלנו. In English, say, first of all, rabbi. In Chutz La'aretz, in States or wherever, rabbi is a regular name, nachon, Rabbi Scott, Rabbi Benny. But in Hebrew, when you speak with someone and said rabbi, mean that you never spoke with rabbi before. It's like a name from the album or something. So she said to me, Rabbi, Rabbi, it's not ours. She didn't say even it's not mine. Rabbi, Rabbi, זה לא שלנו, it's not ours, like the spokesman of the whole 200 kids. And I felt something very much like a box in my heart. And I asked her name, and I asked her, listen, I found that book in the entrance. You said that it's not yours. But where you think I'm supposed to go to find the one who lost it? And that was a moment the 200 kids start screaming each other, של מי הספר הזה? Who is the one who lost that book? And the truth is that if you speak with very young people in Israel, I mean secular, regular, not against religious, not part of religious, not Muslim. If you ask them, do you know something about the Bible? The answer is 0. 0 means nothing at all. I'm keeping here in my table a book, very important one, David Ben-Gurion, עיונים בתנ"ך. If you ask the grandparents of that student that I met 13 years ago, if you ask them, the grandparents, what do you think about the Tanach? The answer will be, it's part of my identity. You cannot be a real Israeli Zionist without using the Tanach by heart. It's all about the history, geography, language, poetry. Everything came from the Tanach. And they knew, the old generation, the old Zionist movement, all of them, right and left, all of them knew Tanach by heart. And then you jump over 70 years or 50 years later, and you see like a desert. The new generation know nothing about Tanach. That moment in that class made me leave everything that I did before. I wasn't part of Tanach business. I taught halacha, I taught Gemara, I did many things. I was a community rabbi. But I understood that this should be my new shlichut, to take the book and start knocking in the doors around the Israeli society and said, I found that book. This is yours. Hashavat Aveda. I want to return back to the people who lost it.
Have you seen success among the secular Jews?
The question is always if you look to the empty or to the full, in the glass. So,
well,
yes,
if it was 0 out of 200, any benefit would be something, obviously. You were going from nothing.
So thanks God, after almost 11 years of doing that, I can say that so many people, I'm talking about thousand Israelis who are in a daily basic reading Tanach. It's unbelievable. It's like, I can say it's a renaissance that Tanakh found themselves back at home. I will give you one small example just to explain. There is in Israel a very well-known poetry, mishoreret, women who she writes the massive numbers of songs that Israelis love to sing. I believe that even the people in Chutz La'aretz know some of them, like Ma'avarech Lo Bameh Vorach in the Memorial Day. She wrote about 300 songs that Israelis love to sing. And she was born in kibbutz 80 years ago. And she's still in the kibbutz, celebrating that summer 80. And her songs, all of them, the beautiful songs with a very beautiful Hebrew, with nothing talking from the sources, from our Mekorot, not from the Bible, not from the Midrash, not from Chazal, not from the Piyutim. It's like dry of Judaism. It's a Hebrew, 100% secular. And she by beautiful songs. I believe that there are no secular Hebrew. I believe that the Hebrew, it's like deep and deep. You go from the upper stage, going deep and deep, and then you find the roots of the language. You find the words from the prophets. You find the words from all over. And to celebrate her, that woman, birthday 80, we mean 929, we just published a new book. We sent for 50 people, very well-known people, religious and non-religious, Orthodox, non-Orthodox, all kinds. We sent the poems of Rachel Shapira, that's her name, and we asked them to write midrash in a basic of the Bible to dialogue with her songs. And that book will published now, celebrate with Rachel Shapira. And the message is that the Israelis read the Tanach just like the Tanach explain and introduce the songs. And it's make the kesher. It's very, very exciting moment. We'll do a big event next week in Binyanei Ha'uma in Jerusalem with thousands of people celebrate the end of that cycle. So, question of what do we see after 11 years? There's so much to do, but we are on the way. We started, and thanks God.
Then let me ask, you mentioned before that before you did 929, you were teaching Gemara, Halacha, the regular yeshiva curriculum. So for many of the Orthodox Jews who are listening to this podcast, who say, what do I need Tanakh for? I learned Gemara, I learned Talmud, I learned Halacha, I learned whatever I learned in the regular curriculum. Could you make a case of why a religious Jew should read Tanakh and learn Tanakh systematically?
It's a very hard question. We should say, first of all, Tanakh brings you closer to the voice of Hashem. When you learn the sages, when you learn Gemara, Midrash, Halacha, Agadah, all that, beautiful book that this is my life and my passion to read and write. Thanks God, I wrote 6 volumes about the sages, and this is my love side of learning. But it's clear that when you learn Gemara, you are listening very serious to the voice of the sages. When you learn Tanakh, you listen closer to the voice of Hashem. It started from the 5 books, and then you move to the Nevi'im, to the prophets, and even in the Ktuvim, when you read Tehillim and other books, you listen carefully to the relationship between man and God. This is something very intimate. And I want to say more than that. If you look back to the time that we, mean the Jewish people, had the privilege to try and build our own society with redemption, with the state, with the kingdom, with all that kinds of independence, that the last time, the serious last time, was in the Bible time. After that, we can find few years in the Maccabean times, another year and a half with Bar Kokhba time, but it's not serious. The periods of independence, it's all in the king's days. To learn Tanach, and I want to tell you that you can't learn Tanach like, a pasuk with Rashi, another pasuk. You need to see the whole picture. For example, if you learn the king's books, King 1, King 2, and you ask yourself, what exactly happened in the days of the king? Then you open the prophets, Ishayahu, Yirmiyahu, Yechezkel, Treasar, and you put one next to one. Mean you put Hosea, the prophet, and you ask him, tell me exactly in what time, in what period you gave your words. And then you learn about Yirmiyahu the second, Yerovam the second, and you make the match between the prophet, the voice of the prophet, and the kingdom, and you understand everything like, I don't want to say like read the newspaper, but lehavdil, when you read a newspaper, you have the news. On the first part of the newspaper, you have the news. And then you go inside the newspaper, you have the interpretation. What the people, the very clever people, think about the news. And when you do that and that together, you take the prophets, like the unbelievable people who bring the voice of Hashem, put them within years of the kings, and then you understand the Tanakh much, much better.
That's very interesting. And Rabbi Benny, you raised some very important points right now. The first one I want to ask, though, is about 929 per se, because in 929, you don't read Hosea and Malachim at the same time. You read them maybe a year apart. So how are we able to do that which you're recommending?
It's a very, very hard way, because the Tanakh, as we got it, we keep it. The system is that you read every day one chapter. You are not making any choice. This is the perek of the day, the chapter of the day. And then, for example, take even not between books, even inside one book. Take Jeremiah as an example. Everyone knows, everyone who opened Jeremiah and tried to learn that book from side to side, 52 chapters, he find himself lost after a few chapters, because Jeremiah served as a prophet for more than 50 years. And the beginning of the book, talking about one period, in the middle of the book, you jump to other. In the end of the book, you return back. I should say, trying to teach Yirmiyahu, chapter by chapter, I can say, big balagan. And the only way, if you really want to hear the voice of the Navi, the prophet, you need to change the chapters. You need to build your new story. But 9 to 9... it doesn't help you. And you should know, this is a very, very limited part of 929. We are learning systematically. And we should remember that we always need to jump back. No, we are not talking in a day that I taught this morning, the chapter about Yoshiyahu the king. To understand Yoshiyahu, you need to jump back to Sefer Melachim, the King's Bee, and then you should go to Jeremiah, and then you should go to Zephaniah from Treasar. You need to collect all, and then you have the picture. But the chapter of the day give you one chance to understand just part of.
So in 929, we're really looking at pshat, localized, that particular chapter right now. And obviously, the more someone does, the better. But in an immediate sense, it's very much bikiyut, trying to just understand the things that Tanakh say with the hope that people will go deeper eventually. Is that correct?
Yeah, I should say it's like going by a boat to see the ocean. So you are not stopping in every island, or you are not going deeper and deeper to see the beauty of inside the sea. You just see the view. To learn 3.5 years, every day, one chapter, it's just to touch a part of it's very, very immediate, very short taste. And if you remember the pasuk in Tehillim, Ta'amu ur'u ki tov Hashem. When you taste and it's sweet to you, then you jump to learn more and more, go deeper and deeper. So this is an invitation to go and start learning it a serious way.
The first time I visited Israel was in 1985 when I was a kid. I don't know if it still exists. I assume it's no longer there. There used to be something called the 99 bus, and it was a bus around Yerushalayim. Not 929, 99, the 99 bus that would give you an hour-long tour just to see the city. It wasn't a tour of Yerushalayim that would be in depth, but it let you know, oh, I'd like to check that place out. Oh, maybe I'll go there tomorrow. Oh, next week I'll try that. So maybe it's parallel.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same.
I'd like to ask you a question which actually can be troubling based on something that you said. You mentioned that Tanach is the place we go to see how an independent Jewish state once existed. We don't have that much after the Tanach. We have the time of the Maccabim, but really the place to look at how a Medina, a Jewish state, should be is Tanach. And that can be very helpful, but being blunt, it can also lead to all sorts of problems. There are things that take place in Tanakh that some people today try to use as models for how to behave. And I think any posek would say, no, we don't act like that. The fact that Shaul, for example, at least most of Amalek he killed, he didn't finish the job, and various other situations, what we might call massacres, elements that can provide theological challenges to us today. And however we explain it as being from the time of the Tanakh, when there's a Navi, that's a different question. But in terms of a model for today, isn't there a danger that people will take ideas that were relevant thousands of years ago but are not relevant today and try to apply them in ways that they shouldn't?
Very, very serious and hard question. And we see, if you remember, that we used to say about the Torah at all, נכון? וצדיקים ילכו בם ופושעים ייכשלו בם. Remember that pasuk, ישרים דרכי השם. Mean the path that Hashem gave us, it's a very, very honest and yashar, it's straight. ישרים דרכי השם. But צדיקים ילכו בם, ופושעים ייכשלו בם. If you are a serious and an honest person, you can walk by דרכי Hashem and you find your way to a very strong and high way. If you come with a negative willing, then פושעים ייכשלו בם. You can use the same way to do the opposite, to do the very hard things. And yes, the answer is very dangerous. And because that, many, many people made the decision not touch that book. They don't want to touch it because it's too dangerous or maybe so sensitive. I should say that I feel that we have no chance except learning and be careful. For example, the principle that we learn from the King's Day about separation between church and the kingdom. It's so important in the Bible. Since the day of David until the day of the last kings, we can say it's so clear that the king have the limited of his power. Mean you understand the codes of the Torah. The Torah tried to show you if you build a kingdom, if you build a state in our modern language, what should be the relationship between the court, between the government, between the parliament, to understand the relationship between all that powers. And more than that, to understand the relationship between the majority and the minorities. Think about that as a Jews, all over what we call Torah shebe'al peh, all days of the sages, Yemei Mishnah, Gemara, all of them, we behaved like minority in the diaspora, all time. And now when we return back to Israel, with the blessing of Shivat Zion, with the blessing of we believe that Hashem returned with us, and we find ourselves as a Jews as majority, and we have minorities around us, inside us, around us. What should be the relationship between minority and majority? So the Torah taught us about Ger Toshav, about the equal rights of the minorities in your society. I'm not talking about terrorists. I'm not talking about the enemies. I'm talking about minorities. And this is a code that Torah gave us. And we believe, like Ishayahu the prophet said, Mitzion tetzeh Torah, Dvar Hashem Yerushalayim, when we can give the codes to the whole world, how the modern society should behave between poor and rich, between the periphery and the central, between minority and majority, between all, the codes are inside the Torah. We can learning that and be very careful.
I certainly agree with you. I'd like to push a little more, only because when one is doing Tanach and is not necessarily also doing the Torah Sheba'al Peh along with it, one looks naturally at the Pshat. And in dealing with Pshat, people today, you mentioned the idea that people who aren't genuine or who get the wrong idea will misinterpret it. But I don't think it's only people who are Rishayim or aren't genuine. There are people who really want to do the right thing, but say, if you don't, for example, a few weeks ago, we read Parashot Matot Maseh, and we talk about the massacre of Midian, what I find to be, for myself, one of the most difficult chapters in Torah, when Moshe says to the people, why did you let the kids live? It's very, very upsetting in some ways. Someone can look at that and say, hey, if you don't do this too, if you don't, I don't want to necessarily relate it to current events. Anyone can use their own mind, but hey, we had to kill all the people there, whether they were innocent or guilty for the most part. So if you don't do that in the modern world, it's not a sign of morality. It's a sign of lack of emunah. So when one is learning it, I agree. Once we have the Torah Sheba'al Peh, we have all sorts of breaks upon that way of thinking. But when someone is learning this without that, it's very good to say, and I hope they do, they see the importance of limited government and the importance of protecting minorities, of course. But they can also see these. These are equally a part of the Pshat. So how does one deal with that?
First of all, you are 100% right. People use the Torah, include the story, terrible story about Midian, and said, this is what Hashem accepts us to do. And if we are not doing that, it's a very lack of emunah, and we need to push that very strong. Don't be so soft, be more strong. We hear that. We hear that all around. I want to say that it's a question of the view that you are learning about emunah and the kesher, the link between the days of the Torah and our days. We are now in Rosh Chodesh Elul. Rav Kook taught us in his book, Orot HaTshuva. He taught us that the world, every generation is better than the last. You have two different of emunot about the new and old generations. The regular one is that you say the old is better. Ma shaya is much better than our. It's called Yeridat Hadorot. Every generation is less than generation before.
And that's the classic view.
This is the regular belief. Rav Kook believed the opposite. He said that every generation is better than the Geulah, the redemption, is going from stage to stage. And when you look about morality in the world, about human being, about understanding what is all about image of God, and how we care about killing it, even one person, you understand that the wars that was in the old days and in the Middle Ages, so brutal, so hard. And today still we have very brutal ways, we have terrible wars, but we care more. We care more, and the ideas, the moral, the values of the humanists, they are part of the beliefs of Judaism. Mean it's not against Judaism. This is the Judaism. And I believe that you understand, like me, that it's a big machloket inside the religious in Israel and in states. If to be humanist is part of be Oved Hashem, or it's against Oved Hashem.
And I agree with you. I think that's so important. I'm going to ask one more question on this same point. Because 929 is largely designed, as you said, for young secular Jews who do not have access to a bigger Jewish education, how do you make sure that when they learn it, they don't misunderstand it? And I don't mean that they're suddenly going to become super right-wingers. I think that's probably unlikely. But they might say, this Judaism, this is terrible. I'm so glad I never learned about this because I'm now reading Parshot Matot Maseh and I'm bothered by what Moshe Rabbeinu, I thought he was a tzaddik, and I read this and I'm upset. How do we guard against that being the result of studying Tanach al pi pshat without going into depth?
We're trying to train the teachers in the public schools in Israel. You know, terrible to say, but in Chutz La'aretz, you know, there are private schools for Jews and public schools for mixed. In Israel, you have the public school from the Jews are not religious. For me, it's like a tragedy. But never mind. This is what we call kachaze. This is the situation in Israel. And because that, we, 929, we work all our energy with the teachers of Bible in the public schools in Israel. We have more than 1,000 teachers around the country that we train them for all the Tochnit, the program of what they need to teach. And we try to put, the light on the very problematic areas to explain, to help them, even to feed them, and to prepare the lesson for them. And thanks God, after 11 years, you cannot find even one teacher in the public schools in Israel that teach Tanach without 929. So, it's all responsibility in our shoulder.
Let me ask about 929 per se and the idea of a shared calendar. Famously, Daf Yomi was started by Rav Meir Shapira in Lublin, and the idea that everybody in the world will be learning the same Daf and Pekut every single day. Was that part of your motivation for 929? Meaning, is it important that everybody does it at the same pace? Or would it be equally good if someone were to say, I can't start now, I'll start in a few months and I'll go through Tanakh? In other words, how important is the shared calendar to the program?
I will answer that with a real story that I did about 12 years ago when I knew that I want to start that journey. I went to 2 stations to get bracha. One, I went to Lublin, to the Rav Meir Shapira yeshiva. You know, Rav Meir Shapira was first cousin with my grandfather.
Oh.
And it was very, very emotional moment that I stood on the stairs of his yeshiva in Lublin. And I talked with his ruach. And I said to him, I want your bracha and your permission to take the system of make the networking of the Jewish people, but move it from the Gemara to the Tanach. Because Tanach, it's much more basic, specific for the Israelis and specific for the secular. The Gemara is so hard, it's longer and harder. And Tanach, it's shorter and much more easy. So that was my first station. Second one, I went to the kever of the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I said to him that I'm not sure that he wants to send me as one of his shlichim, but I want to take his bracha to my journey, because I believe that it's the same idea that he tried to start in the 70s, when he started this huge idea of Ufaratzta and Veyafutsu, that you will not find even one Jew in the corner of the world who is derived from Judaism. Never mind if it will a Shabbat candle, it will be something that touch him with Judaism. And I want to believe that by 9 to 9, you are giving the water to a very dry areas. And the specific, I'm very local person. So it's a strong project inside Israel.
Before you mentioned that when we listen to the words in the Talmud, what we're really doing is listening to the voice of the sages, channeling the oral Torah. When we read Tanach, we're listening to the voice of God much more directly because it's nevuah. Does it bother you if people in a secular context learn the 929 cycle, but don't learn it as Devar Hashem? They learn it more from an academic perspective or a secular perspective as the literature of the Jewish people, perhaps the way that, as you mentioned before, Prime Minister Ben-Gurion learned it, as our history, but not looking at the Ruach HaKodesh that's inherent within it. Does that bother you?
One of the I should say, very strong and hard criticism against 9 to 9 is that question, specific from the Dati area. And the team in all kind of Dati feel not comfortable with 9 to 9 because that question that we give the Tanach without anyone who keep Dvar Hashem, made the Tanach to a secular history, to the cultural book. The answer is very clear. If you understand the situation that the massive number of secular in Israel feel that Tanakh went to a Dati area and mean they left the Tanakh and mean the new generation have no interest of Tanakh. The only way to break that wall is to invite the people to read the Tanakh and to say by their own what they feel, what they want to interpret the Tanakh by themselves. When you have the appreciate of the people and said, listen, it's mine, I have my own belief, I believe that Hashem gave us, you have your own belief, but it's yours. We share together the heritage of this is our Yerusha. It's yours and mine. We are brothers. And it's very hard to see a brother who interpreted the Tanakh so different. Again, one small example will answer that question. When I started that journey, I understood that I need the Kohen Gadol in the secular area, the well-known in the Israeli culture, who will be the leaders of 9 to 9. So I went to Amos Oz. I went to other very well-known names. One of them was, in Israel, very well-known name, Aleph Bet Yehoshua, the author. He is one of the brilliant authors, Zichrono Livracha, passed away a few years ago. And 12 years ago, I came to him, and I said to him, Bully was his nickname, and he didn't know me. I invited myself to him, and I said, Bully, I want to invite you to be part of my projects, and I explained to him what 9 to 9 is about. He looked on me, very aggressive way, and said, no, big no. And I said, why? Say, I cannot trust you. I know you. Know you mean your Yarmulke. I know you. I know that you invite me to read Tanakh, but the truth is that you want to move me and to make me Shomer Shabbat. And because I don't want to be Shomer Shabbat, I will not do even one step to take part of that project. I looked on him and I said, Bully, what I need to do to get your trust? So he answered immediately. It was 1 month before Chag HaShavuot. So he says to me, if you will invite me, it was 12 years ago, if you will invite me to your synagogue, mean the Orthodox synagogue in Jerusalem, Bet Knesset Haramban in Katamon, if you will invite me to your synagogue in the night of learning in Shavuot, and you will give me the reshut to stand on the podium near Aron HaKodesh in the midnight of Leil Shavuot and explain to the people how I interpret the Ma'amad Har Sinai, then I will start trust you. You understand, Rav Khan, that he came, of course, and he stood on the podium, and he gave his speech about Ma'amad Har Sinai. About 1,000 people around, very quiet. And since then, until his death, he was one of my ambassadors to 929.
And you weren't afraid to have him speak about his vision of Mamad Har Sinai?
You can find his speech in our site, in 929, in Sefer Shmot, Perek Yutet. You find, it's not your taste, it's not my taste, but it's a nice kfira.
Okay. When this podcast drops, it will be up to, I believe, the third parak of Brace Sheets because it drops next Sunday night, Monday morning.
Right.
So that leads to a different question I have, which is that if someone says, oh, I'd like to start, but I'm behind, or let's say they miss a day or two. One of the problems that many people have with Daf Yomi, speaking from personal experience as well, is if you fall behind, it's very difficult to catch up. Or even if you say, well, I'll skip it, then I'm not really doing it anymore. So what advice would you give to somebody who's listening to us right now and says, I'd like to do it, but I'm behind, or I know I'm going to miss a few prakim, so what's the point?
So first of all, the one first thing that I did differently from Reb Meir Shapira, I did it 5 days a week and not 7 days a week. I mean, in Israel, it's work between Sunday and Thursday. Friday, you can catch, and Shabbat, you can rest. So this is first of all. Second, it's much easier in Tanach than in the Gemara, because in 5 books in the Torah, it's very easy. You have people read many Parashat Shavua. That will run from now, Sunday, until Chag HaShavuot. Min Gimel Sivan, we will finish 187 chapters of Chamisha Chumshei Torah. Then go to Yoshua Shoftim, and many chapters stand by themselves. Many, if not one chapter, a few chapters. And then it's easy to find yourself between books or between chapters. The truth is that people do that, jump in the middle or forget for 1 week and return back. I can say that it's swimming for a long ocean, and thanks God, in the end, suddenly you find the whole 1,000 in the same stage.
I want to ask you, Rabbi Benny, on a personal level, has there been any particular moment during 929 that has been deeply meaningful to you? Something that you can think of, a story perhaps, of a person who was benefiting from this who otherwise wouldn't have, or even in your own learning, something that you saw differently from the past because of what 929 is?
Wow, I have so many. I want to share one very emotional moment. The Simchat Torah, 2 years ago, in October 7, it was a Shabbat, so Shabbat we are not working. But no one in the religious side in Israel, no one understood exactly what's happened in the day. I mean, just in Motzei Chag, we opened the news and we realized what tragedy we are in. And in around midnight, I found that the manager of 929, named Moshe Ochayon, who was live in Ofakim in the south. I tried to phone him immediately after Motzei Shabbat was, and he didn't answer. And that just in midnight, I got a phone call that no one found him with his son. He was lost with his son. And just before morning, they found him that he was killed with his son, Moshe and his son, in Ofakim. He tried to fight against the terrorists. 9 o'clock in the morning, in the 8th of October, means Sunday, 9 o'clock in the morning, usually, we have a lesson, Shiur Yomi. And I knew that what I supposed to do. We all didn't know what's happened. We were shocked by the news. We are so broken by understand that Moshe's pastor was killed with his son. We didn't know ourselves. And then at 9 o'clock, I opened the Zoom. It's a lesson by Zoom in Israel. 9 o'clock. And like the sunrise, we knew that we need to continue. It was in that days, it was Jeremiah or something. And I taught the same chapter this Sunday, Min Tmidim Kesidram. It was so hard. I can't explain you how much power it gave to the hundreds of people around who took that moment of half an hour's learning and said, thanks God, we used to say about the Torah, Etz Chaim Lamachzikim Ba. And when your tree is broken, you are going deep, deep to the roots of the tree and say, no, we are still connected. Etz Chaim Lamachzikim Ba. So the whole learning of that time was for us like keeping Etz HaChaim, the tree of life. So this is very clear moment for me that what 9 to 9 is all about. Etz Chaim Lamachzikim Ba. And we have so many private, individual stories about bar and bat mitzvah, about weddings, about so many exciting stories. Thanks God, what we're supposed to say, just to continue on and on.
That's beautiful. I mean, it only should for a very, very long time. For yourself, Rabbi Benny, in every cycle, do you learn it a little bit differently? Meaning, of course, every time we learn something, it has a different taste simply because we're seeing it for an additional time. But do you look at it somewhat differently, saying almost, this time I'm going to use the Radak, next time I'm going to use Rashi, next time I'm going to use the Ralbag. What's your method?
I'm specific, trying to find areas that was blind for me. For example, I remember the first cycle, the half a year of learning Tehillim was for me very, very challenge. Because you read Tehillim like what we say in Yiddish, Zug Tehillim. But to think about 150 chapters, it mean in the routine of 9 to 9, it's 7 months. How you keep yourself 7 months by routine way of Tehillim. And I found the way, it was exciting for me, to make a dialogue between me and the chapter every day. You ask yourself, Rabbi Khan, how are you? Ma shlomcha? And you made a dialogue writing between you and the chapter, and I published a book. 150 pieces of thoughts that I wrote about Tehillim after the first cycle. Second cycle, I made exactly the same by Sefer Iyov. Iyov, we know the beginning, we know the end. Inside, it's a big balagan. And I said, I want to make a dialogue with his friends, with Iyov and his friend. Thanks God, it was exciting. That time, the third cycle, first time that I jumped to the Navi Yechezkel. I cannot say it in English. Isaac, how you say it in English? Ezekiel. I don't know why. Okay. But Navi Yechezkel, for me, it was like the mystery, the secret, the whole story about the Kabbalah's business. And I went inside the Yechezkel, and for me, it's so exciting. So I don't know yet who will be my chevruta to the fourth one, but every cycle is exciting again.
Then, Rabbi Benny, let me conclude by asking you, for somebody who's listening and says, okay, give me your very, very quick pitch. I've heard everything you said. Why should I do 929 this year? A religious Jew, probably English speaking. Give me the quick pitch about why it's important for me to do it myself.
Think about yourself as the regular Jewish person who had the privilege to live in our world, that Hashem gave the chance to live in one soul in one period. This is your time. Think that you will finish the whole life without reading what Hashem gave you. The 9 to 9 chapter that Hashem gave, and you, after 120, you will stand in front of Hashem, say, no, I have no time to read your voice. How can you say that?
Okay, then I have one final question, which I'm going to add on anyway. For somebody who just finished 929, can you give the quick pitch? Why should I do it again?
Excellent question. After one time, you understand that you know nothing, and then you start again and again.
Okay, that's an excellent answer. This has been a lot of fun and very inspiring. And I hope a lot of people, all our listeners, take you up on your invitation to start learning Tanach 929, which again begins 2 days before this is going to be released. And there's plenty of time to join in. Rabbi Benny Lau, I appreciate your joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Khan. Thank you very much.
Would you appreciate real and honest conversation about how we actually live and experience mitzvot day to day? I'm excited to introduce Women Talking Mitzvot, a new podcast co-produced by deracheha.org and Beit Midrash Migdal Oz. In each episode, Rabbanit Shana Goldberg and Rabbanit Dr. Yosefa Fogel-Rubel explore both the texts and the lived experiences of women keeping halacha. They go beyond the sources to ask what it means to take mitzvot seriously without shying away from real-life challenges. And they make it relevant for men as well. Whether you're looking for spiritual or intellectual insight, or just a voice that resonates, Women Talking Mitzvot offers meaningful, grounded conversation, rooted in Torah and lived with authenticity. Listen on your favorite podcast app, or visit deracheha.org. That's DERACHEHA.org. And look out for special episodes going up for Elul and the Yamim Noraim that you do not want to miss. Women Talking Mitzvot. You can find the link in the description of this podcast. Before we sign off, a brief word of thanks. Several new listeners have joined our Patreon, and I'm genuinely grateful. You're not buying bonus episodes. You're underwriting the work, the research, editing, and the independence that lets us ask hard questions with respect and clarity. If today's conversation helped you think more carefully about Torah, community, and the world we inhabit, please consider becoming a patron. Even a small monthly contribution makes a real difference in keeping the Orthodox Conundrum going and accessible to everyone. The link is in the show notes. To those who have already joined, thank you. Your vote of confidence means more than you know. And to everyone else, I hope you'll consider joining us. Subscribe to the Orthodox Conundrum podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and please rate it and write a review. I'd appreciate it if you go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review the Orthodox Conundrum. It takes literally 2 minutes. It's just giving a certain number of stars and writing 1 or 2 sentences. Please like the Orthodox Conundrum podcast on Facebook and join our growing Facebook group, the Orthodox Conundrum Discussion Group, where you can feel free to discuss issues in Orthodoxy in an honest and friendly environment. Subscribe to my Substack, Orthodox Conundrum Commentary. Check out the link in the description of this podcast to get your free subscription today. Finally, do you have a message that needs to get out? Do you want to promote your business, your organization, or your cause? The best way is by producing a podcast, and Jewish Coffee House can make it happen. I have experience producing hundreds of podcasts, both for myself and for satisfied clients. Whether you want to learn everything you need in one day, or relax and record and let me do the heavy lifting, Jewish Coffee House Productions will work with you to make it happen and make it even better than you imagined. Let me help you today. Write to us at aliza@jewishcoffeehouse.com. That's ALIZA @jewishcoffeehouse.com. And let's get started with your high-quality, memorable, and effective podcast. I'm Scott Kahn. This has been the Orthodox Conundrum on jewishcoffeehouse.com.